Hello and welcome to Home Media Minefield Presents Let's See What's Out There, a weekly video stream and podcast currently focused on Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which is available to watch on Paramount Plus. My name is Keith Isles and I am joined by
Pete Mealy.
And we are both film and television enthusiasts. And in today's episode, second episode for this week, we are going to have a spoiler-filled discussion around episode 3 of season 2, titled Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. So we've got yet another Star Trek Shakespeare reference, right?
Yeah.
So which they like to do. But yeah, as I said, we're a few days late getting this out, so apologies for that if you're watching. But if you found us for the first time, welcome. Please do check out some of the other content that we have on this channel. Consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. And if you hit the bell icon, you'll get notified as and when new film and television content, related content drops on this channel. So please do. We're currently at around the 700 subscribers mark, and it would be lovely if we could get to 1,000 for the end of this calendar year. Would be great. So yeah, please do consider that. And if you've got any suggestions for what we can do better or things that you'd like to see us cover, then please do put that down in the comment section, and we will obviously take heed of that and see what we can do. So last week we had quite a lot to talk about, but I feel like, Pete, this week we're probably going to have even more to talk about, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I feel there's a big discussion coming on here. We again, if you're not familiar with us, we have a sort of loose agenda that we stick to on this show. So we will be spoiling the episode, but presumably you're not watching this if you haven't already seen it. We'll be talking about the production. We'll be talking about Easter eggs and references, where we think it might be going, and we will really get into our thoughts and we will rank the episode. So anyway, with that said, Pete, hit it.
You would like the story to go now? Yes, that's
very good.
Okay.
Yes.
La'an complains about the struggles of being a security officer until a stranger shows up in 20th century garb with a bullet wound that kills him just after he hands La'an a device and says, "Get to the bridge." So she goes and finds Captain Kirk on the bridge, who doesn't know who she is. They figure out the time travel alternate reality of it all, but in a struggle over the device, click the button, and they end up in Toronto in the early 21st century. They steal some clothes, hustle some 2D chess for money, and get to figuring out what is up. They witness a bridge getting blown up and quickly figure out it was done with future tech. They try and chase down some suspicious folk, but get pulled over and nearly arrested until they are saved by a quick-thinking lady who seems to be a tinfoil hat conspiracy nut, warning about alien involvement with loads of nonsensical proof and a photo of a Romulan warbird, so not totally crazy. They need to track down the fusion generator powering the future tech compound, so they find Pelia, the near-immortal engineer from La'an's timeline, who isn't an engineer yet, but does figure out a way to help via an old-school watch. They find the fusion generator compound, and lo and behold, La'an's DNA can open the door, which is good news for the conspiracy lady who is following them, and it turns out is a Romulan time warrior who has been working to keep humans from their prime timeline. The next step in doing this would be to kill Khan Noonien Singh, currently a child in this futuristic compound run by Earth governments, not aliens. Kirk tries to resist but gets killed. La'an does resist and kills the Romulan. And then, even though it will make her life more difficult, she does not kill baby Khan when she has the chance. Having saved the day, she activates the device and is back home on her Enterprise. Reports filed, the time agency checks in and thanks her for her work. And she checks in on this timeline's Kirk, who she might be harboring feelings for. But we'll have to see how she becomes another notch on his bedside table some other time.
Love it. Very good. Very good. I don't know, talking about time travel and different timelines and stuff, I'm really feeling like we might have been here before. I don't know whether you're getting that vibe with this, but yeah. Anyway, before we get all into that, let's have a look at who made it so this week. Okay, so this week's episode was directed by Amanda Rowe. Looking at Amanda's previous credits for directing, she did some short films back in the early 2000s, but had a directorial of a TV show called Shadowhunters, where she directed 3 episodes of that, and then went on to direct an episode of Cloak and Dagger. Has also done 2 episodes of Light as a Feather, and 3 episodes of Siren TV series, an episode of Doom Patrol, an episode of The 100, and 8 episodes of the rebooted Nancy Drew series before coming on here to do Strange New Worlds. Did an episode last season, series 1, episode 8, The Elysian Kingdom, before directing this particular episode. So, a little bit of Star Trek pedigree there, as well as lots of TV spots, which is good. The episode was written by David Reed. David's writing credits, they go back to the 2010 movie Lake Placid 3, part of the Lake Placid franchise. He also wrote a couple of episodes of Supernatural, as written for the Lake Placid, the final chapter in 2012,
Wow.
as well as Revolution Enemies of the State miniseries, and has also written episodes of Aquarius, 5 episodes of that, 21 episodes of The Magicians, and an episode of The Boys, or 2 episodes of The Boys, before this one on Strange New Worlds. So plenty of writing credentials there. And then looking at guest stars for this week. So playing the part of Sarah in this episode is Adelaide Kane. Now, Adelaide Kane, basically credit-wise, they go back to... Hold on, sorry, my computer's messing up. Damn it. Oh, here we go. So she was in Neighbours way back in 2007. Did 47 episodes of Neighbours. And then appeared in the TV series Power Rangers. And has since had guest star roles on The Purge, Teen Wolf, Louder Than Words, Blood Punch, The Devil's Hand, Can't Buy My Love, the TV movie, playing Lily, Dragons Race to the Edge, doing some voice work there on that TV series. Once Upon a Time, a recurring role there on 13 episodes. A Midnight Kiss TV movie, Into the Dark TV series, This Is Us, SEAL Team, playing Rebecca Bowen on 10 episodes, Grey's Anatomy, Dr. Jules Millen on 20 episodes, and now here we have the Romulan, or the Romulan in disguise, Sarah. So that is this week's credits.
Yeah.
Good stuff, eh? So, our bit of fun that we have every week. Did you prime up your drink?
No, I'm going drinkless today.
There you go. Well, in Janeway fashion, I have got a black coffee today, but we call this section tea, Earl Grey, hot. Alrighty, so this is where we look at Easter eggs, references, connections, all of that sort of thing, of which I think there's plenty in this episode. But Pete, I've done a lot of talking, so go for it.
So we get a reference to Denobulans, Denobulans, with a Denobulan prison, and Plummox soup, which is the Vulcan dish, because Kirk knows how to do the Vulcan nerve pitch in this episode. We get some discussion of Kirk's middle name. I was a little disappointed that they didn't go with his first middle name in the alternate timeline.
Yes,
but we're fine. It just could have been fun, but okay, whatever. We also get the United Earth Fleet, which couldn't remember, but is that what they like before Starfleet? One of the early Star Trek episodes, didn't they call the Enterprise part of like a United Earth Fleet or something?
I think so. Yeah.
That's what I got.
I think you might be right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I got some pictures as well. So a few bits and pieces here, not in any particular order. And also I had trouble finding pictures online. Who would have thought that nowadays you can't find a picture of anything online, But anyway, so we see Kirk in this actually win a lot of money, which I'm sure we'll get into exactly how long he must have played chess for. But obviously he said that this two-dimensional chess was easy, and right back as far as the second pilot of Star Trek in 1966 called Where No Man Has Gone Before, we see Kirk actually beat Spock at 3D chess in that, and wonders if Spock's irritated by that. So that was clearly a reference to Kirk's playing of chess in multiple timelines, which is good. One of the things I see, as you know, I'm a big Voyager fan. I've brought this up before. I was hoping there was a character in Star Trek Picard season 2, so a couple of years back, that was played by an actor that had appeared in an episode called Relativity, and I was hoping that it would be the same character, but no, of course they weren't smart enough to do that. It was the same actor playing a different character. But here we do see not only do we see the Department of Temporal Investigations, but the device that is handed to Leon has the same graphic as that Voyager episode Relativity, where they show the temporal mechanics. And I managed to find a picture there. It's a little bit small, but I did manage to Google it and find a picture of, you can see Leon looking at the graphic from this episode, and also just below it, there's a picture of that character from Voyager looking at that episode, looking at that graphic as well. So I'm sure that was obviously not an accident. Little things. Kirk says he was born on the USS Iowa, which obviously is a reference to the fact that Kirk was actually in the main timeline born in Iowa. I kind of see what they did there. I actually think it would have been more clever if they'd said on the Kelvin, but that obviously relates to yet another Kirk timeline.
Different timeline.
But there's that. We obviously, like you said, we get the middle name thing. We also get it with Kirk's brother as well, being George Samuel Kirk, even though everybody knows him as George Kirk. You mentioned the Denobians. I couldn't find a picture, but I think when Leanne's doing her log as doing her security work, there is a Denoblian officer in that scene as well. What else have we got? There's a bit where Kirk says Noonien Sung rather than Noonien Sing, which I'm sure again was done on purpose. As we know, Noonien Sung being the creator of Data later on, and obviously that whole naming convention being, I believe, a friend of Gene Roddenberry's back in the day that he used there. We see a Romulan bird of prey on the tablet of Sarah in this. What else? Why have I got? Oh yeah, they mentioned the temporal war as the thing, which I'm sure we're heavily into, as the thing of putting dates out. Obviously, that's kind of a reference to things that were dealt with but not really concluded in Star Trek Enterprise. Sadly, that was cancelled before we sort of got any more into that. I thought Kirk dying in this timeline, the shot they kind of used there was a little bit reminiscent of Kirk dying in the film Star Trek Generations. And I did wonder whether Paul Wesley was going to go, "Oh my," at the end, or ask, or say it was fun, or ask if they made a difference or something, but they didn't go quite that deep. And then the other thing I couldn't find a picture of this anywhere, but when Leanne goes into adolescent Khan's room, there is a picture of the other children augments, and they're all wearing red jumpers. And I just thought it kind of reminded me that in Space Seed, in the original series, when we see Khan and the other augments, they're wearing like red jumpsuits. So I didn't know if that was a blatant reference, but I'm sure, you know, all of these decisions have to be made, and I'm sure that wasn't done accidentally. So that's kind of pretty much what I spotted, but I'm sure there's probably other things in there. But yeah, quite a lot to look at.
Yeah. Good.
So, are you seeing any lights in that?
Yeah.
timeline?
I've got a huge light above me, but I think there's four lights.
Okay, so any speculation from you?
I really thought this was going to be the episode where the crossover episode with Lower Decks. Right. Although I will say, I have started getting the next week on.
Oh, really?
You don't? Yeah.
Yeah, we don't get that here, or I haven't noticed Paramount Plus doing it at the end of the episode. It's normally trying to recommend to us to watch something completely
else, right?
different. But
no, we started getting the next week on. So I do have a pretty strong idea of where this is going.
Okay. But it would spoil it, right, to say so?
Yeah, I don't want to say anything. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you might laugh at mine. I'm
Okay,
wondering whether we might actually get Captain Pike in this series at some point. I mean, we've had now 2 out of 3 episodes where he just makes essentially a one-scene cameo appearance. And, you know, I did think that this Strange New Worlds, not only did I think we might actually visit Strange New Worlds, but I thought it was going to be about Captain Pike and Number One. But, you know, I appreciate they're doing things with the other characters, which I do appreciate. But I'm like, hello, where is Captain Pike? Where is Anson Mount? Where is our main star of this series? What's going on?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping, you know, I've just put that in there as speculation. He sat there. Look, that's the best picture I could find of him patiently waiting on the bridge to be used. because even in the second episode, he kind of took a bit of a back seat in that episode as well.
Yeah, he's got like 2 scenes.
So,
yeah.
so it's like, and on the subject of Captain Pike, I've got to give a shout out. So the Turkish barber that I go to up the road here in London, right? When he first does my hair, he does an amazing job that I can't maintain. And you can't see it now, but I properly had a Pike quiff going on when I left the barbers, you know, with them using their hair dryers and special instruments and gels and all of that stuff, but I cannot replicate it myself. But there you go. I just thought I'd throw that in there as a silly comment because I
going in with your photo?
I told you I was totally going to get a Captain Pike quiff, didn't I?
Yeah. You just show him the photo, or does he do it on his own?
No. I was just kidding around anyway. Sorry, I'm just joking and trying to be ironic with it all. But
yeah.
I love Captain Pike. Where is he? There you go.
Yeah, he's really. All I can think is like, was he filming some movies or something, and they didn't have a ton of his time here, or what? Because
maybe. Who knows? But yeah, we'll have more comments on that later. But I just thought it would make you giggle if I said my prediction was that we're going to see Captain Pike at some point.
I can neither confirm nor deny. Yeah.
There you go. All right. Well, that means we're already at the point to draw a line and get into this.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, yes, drawing a line under episode 3, tomorrow, and tomorrow. Yes. So this is where we really get into it. So, Pete, hit it.
I love this episode. I thought it was really, really good. Again, I thought this would have been a great first episode.
Right.
Instead of what we got as the season opener. I think that they did something interesting. They told an interesting story, and they had a compelling character moment at the heart of it all. And so I really dug it. I thought it was fun. I know,
that is not what I was expecting. This is why I love that we don't talk to each other before, because that's not what I was expecting you to say, Pete. I thought you were going to hate this.
I loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun. And there's a little bit of like fan servicey stuff in there, right? But there's there's moments that I really think they missed where they could have had jokes just for Star Trek fans. Like when they get in the sports car, I was really expecting Sabotage to play by the Beastie Boys. I just thought that would have been perfect. And like totally time appropriate, more time appropriate possibly than Star Trek 2009, but whatever. This Kirk, I think, was kind of a perfect Kirk, right? Like, sure, it's an alternate timeline, but he's got all of the things that previous timeline and previous iteration Kirks have, just in a different actor playing it. I don't know. I thought it was hilarious.
Wow.
It was fun.
Okay.
It was
I don't know why I was expecting you not to like it, but I'm kind of a bit torn on this because somebody asked me, what I thought of it, and my response was, is it really entertaining and a fun watch? Absolutely. Okay. However, is it true to Star Trek canon and the characters? Maybe not.
I would say it is.
Okay. we'll get into that. We'll get into the other thing. I guess the other reason I had a bit of a problem on this from a writing perspective was I felt like this was very similar to what we saw in season 2 of Picard.
100%.
Like almost like, why are they not tying this together with it? Because they set things up in that episode, which essentially would have only been a year ahead of this, where they come back to in the timeline, in inverted commas. And they were setting up all this stuff. And, you know, we already had Orla Brady playing that, you know, Romulan
Water
agent, you know, and all of this sort of thing. So I was kind of a little bit puzzled, because I'm thinking this is the same producers and the same people making this show. So why haven't they been a bit smarter at sort of joining the dots up there, rather than essentially playing on exactly the same beats that we got from that show, which obviously that show was major problematic, you know, season 2 of Picard. But yeah, it's weird, because this was a lot of fun, because it's an alternate timeline Kirk that we're dealing with, a little bit like the sort of Chris Pine in the movies. Is this Kirk has a different backstory, therefore, you know, it means that Kirk is not necessarily, or it doesn't have to be, the William Shatner James T. Kirk, which I sort of appreciate. In fact, it's quite interesting, because Paul Wesley in this, obviously he appeared last season in an alternate timeline as well, but at that point he was supposed to be the age of Kirk in the original series, and he was an alternate version of that Kirk, whereas in this one he's essentially playing an alternate version of Kirk, but the age that Chris Pine plays Kirk in the Kelvin series. So it's interesting. He's had to sort of straddle both, and he's made it his own. So I don't actually have a problem with Paul Wesley in terms of his performance. It's you know,
I'm trying to make the math work on that sentence, but yeah, I guess.
Well, yeah, this takes place, or the Kirk that's come into this would be the same age as the Kirk from the Kelvin movies, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So, which we see at the end. We see Lieutenant Kirk on the Farragut at the end, don't we? Played by Paul Wesley. But you know, it's that thing. He doesn't look like either Shatner or Pine, but that's kind of okay as well. But I just thought, I don't know. I just thought the beginning of this, they made him look a bit buffoonish. You know, the whole thing about, you know, the not being able to tell New York from Toronto, and the whole thing in the revolving door, and you know, until the chess game where he comes to his own, and then the driving. But before that, I was thinking, what are they just trying to make Kirk look stupid here? That's
interesting.
What are your thoughts?
Well, because I always think of Kirk as a little bit of you know, he's got the, maybe not full buffoon, right? But he's got the pride and the pomp and circumstance that go with buffoon. But then, and so, and the cockiness, right, of a buffoon. And so the Toronto, New York thing, I just thought that was like a inside baseball TV joke.
I think it was. Yeah,
right?
I think it was that Toronto often stands in for you know,
doubles, as New York
cities in the States. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's like I thought that was that, and same thing with like the revolving, or slightly different, but the revolving door. I was like, well, like I think the point they're trying to make is that um, this timeline Kirk comes from a world where Earth isn't safe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Well,
right.
he was born on a star. I suppose. Yeah. Actually,
Yeah,
logically, he was born on a starship, so he's used to the
and
everywhere,
yeah,
right? That's
yeah, and so
sliding door.
they're they were they were giving the same thing as they do with the line about the sunset, but just in a different, they're trying to set up that sunset line, I think, with some humor, and then pay off, with how different Kirk's timeline has been. Um, and so I don't know, I did not mind it. I think um, I was almost expecting in the car scene, right, where Kirk apparently has trouble getting the car into drive. I was expecting there to be a cut and then La'an to be driving.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I was like, that is just going to set off so many people, right?
Yes.
Right? But then
Oh,
they
definitely. Yeah.
didn't,
Yeah.
right? Like if they'd done that.
Yeah.
But instead, it was just like a quick joke. And I was like, okay, I'm okay with that, right?
Yeah.
Like they,
Yeah.
yeah,
I feel that tonally, what they were trying to do with this episode was kind of Star Trek 4 meets City on the Edge of Forever.
exactly. Yeah.
Whether or not I would say, entertaining as it was, whether I would say it was successful in that, I'm not too sure.
Interesting.
I had a bit. I just don't. I liked the sort of fish out of water stuff that they did, and obviously the time travel stuff, and obviously Kirk had a different badge, even though his uniform still had the normal Star Trek logo embossed into it, but or
Yeah.
Starfleet logo. But he had and all of that sort of alternate stuff. The But there was a lot of logic points, which, as I said, if you take it from a bit of entertainment, is totally fine. But how much money did he win, and how quickly? And I thought chess was a game that kind of took a while, right? And
Oh no.
but the thing is, like, they do things like they check into that hotel, which was a nice hotel, by the way. I don't know many hotels that you can check in without some form of ID and a credit card, and just pay cash. The other thing is Vermont's in the US, right? So they go from Canada to Vermont and back. So they pay for that, but also how do they get across the border? I know I'm being a bit,
She says they bribed an
Oh,
agent.
did they bribe someone? Okay, fair enough. I missed
She
that.
says it. She's got a line where she
Right.
says, because
Okay.
as soon as they show up in Vermont, I went, come on, right? But fair enough. They threw a line in where La'an says, like, to Pelia, I think, right? Like, we've been on 3 buses and we had to
Okay.
bribe a border agent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess it took place over longer than it seemed then, and obviously the get to the bridge thing, yeah, that was fine. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean the whole. I've not done any research on this, but I like watches and all of that, right? But I'm not sure if that's how phosphor on the on the hands of watches actually works. That was kind of a bit of a plot convenience there. I felt, but again, that's a bit nitpicky, I know. And then of course, they are, which they've been trying to do. I've noticed with New Trek, we've talked about this before, about how they're trying to retcon things that don't make sense, and obviously, the Romulan agent has said about the fact that they are 30 years or more behind Oh, you're muted, Pete. You're muted.
Sorry, I was coughing and forgot to
That's
unmute.
right. They're like 30 years or more behind where things should be, because initially I thought, how is Khan still an adolescent or whatever at this point? But again, if we're 30 years behind where everything, or 40, 50 years behind or whatever, they already sort of said that the eugenics wars led into World War III, and they've made references about how records from that time are are patchy, and we obviously got the Project Khan thing in season 2 with Brent Spiner, which again, I thought they were going to somehow link that, they were going to somehow join the dots with that, because as we know, that was supposed to be the 90s, and Khan was lost from 1999 or whatever. So I get why they've had to fix all that, because otherwise it sort of doesn't make sense with Star Trek being a possible future for us and stuff. But yeah, the other thing that's in Strange New Worlds that's puzzled me all along is the fact that the whole Lan Noonien Singh thing is, first of all, if it was so bad, why did her parents keep the name?
Yeah.
and also why did they give her a name that rhymes with Khan as well? but also she serves with Spock, yet in Space Seed, Spock didn't sort of know of Khan Noonien Singh until they researched it. So I guess again, it's a bit of a times. I always think that when my view is my headcanon-y thing to make all of this make sense is when Picard and crew went back to First Contact, and when Kirk and crew went back for Voyage Home, there are ripples in the timeline that's changed.
Yeah.
And that's what's sort of pushed things back and made these subtle differences and changes to things, and obviously what was going on in Enterprise as well with the temporal Cold War and all that stuff. There'd been like changes made which have rippled up into these timelines. I don't know. That's just how I think.
No,
of it.
that's what I took. I thought that's exactly what the Vulcan agent was saying, right? Is that like there's been temporal cold where the stuff is changing, right? It's not exactly the same. And so I was like, oh, it makes total sense. Like, yeah, if they really wanted to bring it all home together, right, they could have had yet another Brent Spiner cameo as he's somewhere on the compound, right? Or even just, have his name or photo somewhere. But
Yeah.
he could have been in the photo with the kids, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that would have, but I'm not gonna, I don't know. That wasn't enough to make me angry because I still felt
No,
it all worked. Yeah.
And the whole point of this section is it's nitpicks, right? So
Yeah.
because as I said, in terms of a piece of enjoyment, I thought it was very entertaining. But in terms of actually lining up, problematic. And as I said, it felt very much like what they'd already done in Picard to an extent.
Totally agree. It's what they already done. I felt like they really cleaned things up in this episode.
Okay.
By saying, hey, right, yeah, the timelines don't match. That's a direct result of the temporal Cold War.
Yeah.
And like that's pushed things out. And so I was like, oh yeah, look at that, right? Like
yeah, absolutely.
It fits.
And also they've done the they've done the sorry, my computer is annoyingly randomly asking me to enter. Hold on. But they also one of the things they did that was clever is I told you when we were talking about this season going into it, I was really worried about having too much James Kirk in this because but what they did last season and this by having him as alternate timeline versions, that actually doesn't mess with any of the the character continuity, which I suppose is a fairly clever way of dealing with the with that issue, which was good. What else? Yeah, and at least with the kid playing young Khan, they kind of got the ethnicity right. It wasn't like they tried to find a young Benedict Cumberbatch. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
so they
Yeah.
sort of got that right. But yeah, it was entertaining. I just felt, I don't know, I felt the thing with the Romulan spy thing was a bit, I know it felt a bit clunky, but more because of what they did in Picard season 2 than actually what they've done here, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So if you just ignore Picard season 2, like
Oh
I
wow,
love doing,
which I tried
yeah,
to. Yeah,
yeah, this thing works beautifully.
yeah, yeah. No, it was a lot. It was a lot of fun. I'll agree with that. I am though the thing about. I mean, it was great to find out more about Leon, and also Christina Chong. Great to see a British actress there doing well in in a US show. Awesome, and she was great in it, so that's good. But as I said, I'm sort of concerned that we haven't seen much Pike. It's kind of something that feels a bit weird with this show. Yeah, don't know.
I gotta disagree. I think that you know, a big problem last week was with them having painted themselves in a corner with timelines, right? And so I think the more episodes we see with characters who aren't in other Star Trek iterations, the better off this show can be, the more they can do, the different things they can do. Um, so I was like, yeah, right. Like Pike's a compelling character, Anson Mount's a great actor, but anytime they want to, you know, go play in a different part of the sandbox that, hasn't been sort of built up by other areas and we're worried about ruining what other people have done, it's great.
Mhm.
Yeah, go do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Did we had a few little guest appearances by some of the other characters just briefly, didn't we, at the beginning
Yeah,
and stuff, and and the whole thing with Lan, I think they were trying to go for the sort of Kirk City on the Edge of Forever thing, and even though her performance is great there at the end when she calls Lieutenant Kirk and whatever, overall I'm not sure this episode actually delivers quite that compelling a story. It was more of a piece of entertainment rather than, I don't know.
yeah. I guess I see. So I think the weakest part of it for me was the love story setup, right,
Right.
between La'an and Kirk. I Yeah, I don't know. I didn't care about that. I did think that the part of the story that was about you know her dealing with her past and like you know what did she call it? The scarlet letter attached to her name, right?
Yeah.
And she allows it to continue. I thought that was interesting and sort of understated for sure, right? Like, I don't know that they played with it a ton, but I also felt like that worked. It wasn't super in depth. They just sort of touched on it real, and moved on. It it was interesting to me. It was sort of like they did a "Would you go back in time and kill baby Hitler" story,
Yes.
um, right? With but it was Hitler's grandniece or something was
Yeah.
the person going back in time, and uh, I was like, oh, that's really interesting, but they didn't spend a lot of time on it. Um, but I think they still hit it fine, right?
Yeah.
It was just quick think piece. You know, I liked it because it's something that I can take away and think about,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and come to my own conclusions. And they didn't do a ton with it. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. No, I mean it's good. I don't know. I'm just trying to I guess if I'm being sort of cynical about it, it just feels like there's a lot of nostalgia touch points that they
hmm
seem to and this is a general comment, not really just on this episode, just generally, they seem to come back to these nostalgia touch points all of the time for everything. It's Khan, it's eugenics war, it's familiar characters.
yeah,
And this was my minor criticism of the whole setup of this show is apart from who have we got? Apart from Ortegas and Una from a certain perspective, and now Pelia, who's kind of she's a bit of a Guinan stand-in, isn't she? Really, one of these
yeah.
beings who have been alive,
Oh,
in
that's a really smart connection.
hiding in
Yeah,
plain sight in our time and all this sort of thing. But apart from them, all of the other characters are either characters that we know where they end up or they're related to someone that we know in the thing. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of, again, it's back to that. We bring it up nearly every time, but that whole sort of prequel problem.
yeah.
One thing I was pleased about, though, is the temporal investigations office or whatever it's called. What are they called? Department of Temporal
Police. Yeah.
Investigation. You know, I'm glad she wasn't able to tell Pike about this simply because, Pike already as a character not only knows his own future, but he knows, about the Discovery and the Spore Drive and Michael Burnham. He also knows about the Mirror Universe and Section 31, and he knows what the Romulans look like. So he kind of knows so much stuff that he's not supposed to know already that I'm glad that Leon's not allowed to share this with him.
Yeah.
Hard as that is for her as a character, obviously, but I'm kind of quite glad that she didn't sort of recite the whole story to him as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Carol Kane, I'm still sort of on the fence about the character, although a better use of that character in this storyline than we had in episode 1. Because I just didn't like let's hijack the Enterprise in episode 1, as you know.
Yeah.
Really had a
Yeah.
problem with that.
No, it was a really bad first episode. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Anything else you want to add? I feel like I'm being the one who's down on it, and I don't mean to be because I actually had a really good time watching the episode. I found it entertaining, but I just feel that they are using some of these Star Trek tropes as a bit of a crutch, and I don't know whether that's actually a good thing or not.
What do you mean? Like which tropes? Sorry.
Well, the things like we're talking about, it always comes back to Khan. They did it with the movies.
Okay.
They did it with the reboot movies when they should have left alone. They've done it with Picard. They've done it with. I don't know. I just feel like they always seem to come back to these things.
No, I totally agree with you.
Rather than exploring strange new worlds, which is the title of the show, right?
You would think they would spend more time doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just feeling. I'm feeling a bit like I'm being a bit hard on it, but the reason being is it just felt like they said, "Oh, that thing we did in Picard episode or Picard season 2. Let's just take elements of that and throw it at this now." And I don't know. That just seemed a bit lazy, even though I do like the way that they're trying to retcon some of the issues, and they've been trying to do that in New Trek. They did it with the whole Romulans looking different the forehead bumps and all of that. They did it with that, didn't they? They've done it with the dates of World War III and the eugenics wars and all of that. But anyway, I feel like I'm boring you now.
No, I think I'd say like it's interesting that you and I are on opposite sides of where we normally are. I also think that Picard season 2 was a real disaster.
It was.
And so I am so grateful that they they're able to take some of that stuff and turn it into this, right? Something else.
Yeah.
Fully in favor.
Yeah. I think I'm trying to sort of again articulate my feeling. And I think my feeling is this goes under the category of enjoyable Star Trek, but I put a question mark as to whether it's good Star Trek.
Mm.
And those two can be mutually exclusive as well. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that applies to all Star Trek anyway. There's been good and bad episodes from every iteration.
Yeah. You've only seen it the once, right?
Yeah, I've only all of them so far this season. I've only watched the once, and the one I've probably got the most problem with is still the first episode because I didn't like the super soldier drug thing, and
I
all
didn't
of
like
that.
huge parts of that first one.
Yeah.
And so
go back
I
and
don't
watch
know.
our episodes if you want to know what we mean. So.
Yeah. I'd say I think, if you get a chance to rewatch this episode, you might come around on it a little bit. Yeah. This has been my favorite one so far, I think.
Okay, well, that's not difficult, right?
Out of 3, yeah. But not a ton of choices, yeah. And they did a lot of great stuff in it. So I get what you're saying. Like, I do think the entertainment value is high on this one, right? It's got that sort of action movie, modern feel to it, that can really take it out of the Star Trek realm. But I think it still had enough in there, and it connected to enough of the history in ways that worked for me. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, that probably leads us nicely into our rank stripe system. So, where are you on this one?
I think I'm going to give this one a commander. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode.
Are we in a different timeline where they've swapped Pete for me? Have I woken up in a different timeline? Because
is London Bridge still there?
Yeah. Oh
that's
God.
The question.
Gotta go and check. Yeah, because I'm going to give this one a lieutenant commander. I've given the first 2 a lieutenant.
Yeah. Okay.
Given it a lieutenant commander just because from an entertainment point of view, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But I know I've still got, as we've gone into it, I've still got slight nitpicks. So I'm going to go
got some reservations. Yeah.
Upper middle there. So yes, lieutenant commander for me this week. But it's interesting because again, if people go back and watch our we've covered
season 3, yeah,
seasons 2 and 3. We've in fact as a podcast we've done 1, 2, and 3.
But 3, yeah.
On YouTube we've done 2 and 3. So yeah, please go and check those out if we haven't driven you mad with this one.
And normally Keith is much higher rated.
I don't know what's the matter with me. I'm just kind of a bit near at the moment with this stuff. But yeah. All right.
I suspect that in 6 months, a year, right, when the writer's strike has delayed everything and you're looking for more Trek to watch, you're going to go back, watch these and absolutely love them.
Well, I love time travel and alternate reality episodes. You know,
Yeah.
there's I used to have a there was a obviously I have to relate everything to home media, but there was a DVD box set called Alternate Realities, which took time travel and alternate timeline episodes from all of the series, you know, right the way up to at that point Voyager, I think, or actually Enterprise, perhaps, yeah, all the way up to there. And you know, those are amongst my favorite types of Star Trek episodes, even though I know that they weren't necessarily the deepest or most philosophical of episodes of Star Trek. I've always, in terms of a romp, I've always enjoyed those. And I know, I mean, I know for one thing, Pete, I know you don't like the mirror universe, right?
Hate
And,
it. Yeah.
but yeah, I found in a Mirror Darkly, the Enterprise two-parter, I found, you know, very, very entertaining. But that's a whole nother thing. Anyway,
Whole other thing.
Time to open a channel. You with us, Pete?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was just stifling a sneeze. I apologize. I'm sorry. I couldn't type it in.
That's
So
right.
ask you. I'm sorry. If you're, I'm really sorry. Anyway, if you're watching this on YouTube, please check out our podcast version. Follow us on all good podcasting apps. Let's see what's out there. You can follow us on social medias at LSWOTcast, or please do send us an email. Let us know what you think directly. We'd love to hear from you. LSWOTcast@gmail.com. I've been Pete Neely. Thanks so much. Keith, where can people find more of you and your work?
Yeah, well, obviously you're here on Home Media Minefield. So as I said, please check out some of the other bits and pieces. The videos are now separate on YouTube from what they call live, which is live streams and video streams. So they run in different channels, but I've also got some playlists on there as well. I do cover the Star Trek physical media, Blu-rays for all of the movies plus Strange New Worlds season 1. So please check out that. We also cover other shows like The Mandalorian and some of the shows from the Marvel universe, etc. on here, as well as other movies. And yeah, so check all of that out. Also, I have another channel, British Isles, which is EYLES. And there's half a dozen short films that I made that you can check out on there. But otherwise, that just leaves me to give a shout out to Neil Myers, who does the music for this show. His work can be found at neilmyersmusic.com. So that just leaves me to say thanks, Pete, for joining me on this once again. And
thank you, Keith.
Thank you for watching out there. Please spread the word, all of that sort of thing. And we will see you next time on
Let's See What's Out There.
Bye for now.